Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Welcome to Semi-Pro's Garage. I'm your host, Chase. And today, we're going to be talking about all the changes we've been making on the car since our last video. So, it's been a while since I can say... No, I'm just kidding. I don't own the rights to that video. Can't sing that song. Don't want to get fined. So, been a long time since we've been on the channel. I think our last video was about the radiator fan control that we figured out. So I made a little quick video for you guys about that. Today, there's going to be a couple different videos that we're going to film and release here soon. We're going to do the mechanical pump. So we switched to mechanical pump on the car, going methanol, removing the intercooler, all that fun stuff. The video after that is going to be how we've swapped to a rear mount radiator setup, because like I said, we're going methanol now, so we can move the radiator from the front of the car. I'm selling the old setup, getting a smaller radiator with a different fan. We're going to have that mounted in the rear of the car. You guys will see a little bit of that today. That's going to be a separate video. And then we're going to talk about the changes we're making, different turbo, different intake lids, stuff like that. So, anyway, today is going to be all about the mechanical fuel pump setup. So, I'm going to be able to show you guys some of the changes that I've made at the factory gas tank. It is still a stock OEM Fbody tank. 99 to 02 are the plastic tanks, and then the 98, I believe, is the like thin sheet metal gas tank. So this is a 99. I'll be able to show you how it's got a perfect spot in it for a sump fitting. Motion Raceworks has a really good sump fitting that we used, dash 12 fitting and everything attached, internally baffled, all that. We redid the whole fuel system. So I ran all new lines, filters, the whole nine. So, today I'll get under the car, show you guys the lines, the fuel filters and stuff, and then also be able to show you guys the front of the car, which I'll probably start with now. So, basically, we were running a couple different ideas, bouncing some ideas off of some of the parts dealers and stuff that we use, and some of the guys that we race with locally. And the company we went with was Alky Digger. Aeromotive has a nice kit. Motion Raceworks has a decent kit, but Alky Digger is who we decided to go with on the car. They have a kit on their website they have an LS kit that I believe puts if you want to mount the pulleys and your pump and stuff on the passenger side of the engine. They have one, I believe, that has with a motor plate and without a motor plate. Because of the setup that I have on the car right now, I did the small block Chevy kit, I believe, and then I actually called and dealt with them directly and had them actually do a little bit of mixing and matching, because I have the pump mounted on the driver's side of the engine block, because my alternator is on the low, kind of mid to low passenger side of the motor. So I'm going to have a link in the description, or I'll probably just put my photos of the kits, like the small block Chevy kit that I did, and then there's some spacers and stuff that actually Amazon has that is meant for an LS engine, and I think it's a 4-inch bolt spacer, like hollow spacer that you can cut to length. So depending on if you are truck spacing or F-body spacing or Corvette spacing or whatever, you can cut this spacer to length to be able to mount the bracket for your mechanical pump. The Alky Digger kit that I chose was like I said, the small block Chevy kit. Because of my alternator placement over here on the car, and I kind of have everything torn apart, we're going naturally aspirated, guys. Gonna just run open intake. No, I'm just kidding. So, because of my alternator placement, the LS kit that Alky Digger sells, I believe, mounts the pump down on the lower corner of the block down here. Because of this, I was not able to do that, and I don't want to move alternator location because of, you know, my crossover placement and everything, and I don't want to get into all that. Finally got this alternator spacing and everything proper with the tensioner and everything that I made, where it's no longer throwing the alternator belt. Haven't had any issues. The main reason that we actually did this deal was because the car was having voltage issues, which was because of the dual radiator fans that I had, which, as you can see, radiator is now going off the front of the car. The dual radiator fans were pulling a lot of amperage when they would run. Ultimately, that's why we ended up having it on, putting the fans on a dash switch so that we could eliminate that. But I had triple fuel pumps, and those things were pulling 9 amps or more per pump. So ultimately, I ended up going mechanical fuel pump just because of the voltage issues. And, you know, I figured while I'm in there with the mechanical fuel pump that I might as well go ahead and switch to methanol, get all the weight off the front of the car, no intercooler, no radiator up here. So all about trying to get faster, guys. Pick up some ET, mile an hour, all that fun stuff. So small block Chevy kit comes with the L-shaped bracket right here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. The lighting's kind of poop. What you would call the lollipop mounting bracket for the actual mechanical pump. So bracket here, lollipop, gear for the fuel pump. This is the LS mandrel. So when I called and spoke with the guys at Alky Digger, I kind of did a little mixing and matching. The small block Chevy kit comes with obviously the small block Chevy mandrel that has to be the actual outside diameter of this mandrel that bolts to the damper has to be machined down in order to fit inside of your damper. They removed the small block Chevy mandrel and swapped it out for the LS mandrel, and everything else is the small block Chevy stuff. So bracket, small block Chevy, the pulleys and everything are the same, and then the mandrel and the bolt comes with their kit. So the only other thing that I needed was this is the 4-inch LS alternator bracket spacer off of Amazon. So I can put a link as well for this. 4 inches was exactly what I needed to get the spacing that was required of my mechanical pump setup. And obviously you have 3 inches or so to play with here. So you can cut this down, or you can leave it at length like I did. Then I went with a Pro Series 1000 MagnaFlow fuel pump. This thing will make all the power that I need it to on this engine on methanol. I know a lot of guys run this exact same pump setup that have zero issues. As long as you get adequate injector sizes for your setup, which right now the car currently has a set of Bosch 210s. I'm kind of playing with the idea of running a high base pressure and running these 210s and seeing how much power I can make on methanol with those. But ultimately in the future we're going to swap to the Fuel Tech 520s. As you guys know, we swapped over to Fuel Tech, and then that way I'll get the drivers and the injectors and everything that I need for this setup. I'll go ahead now and get under the back of the car, and I'll be able to show you guys now. I'll flip the mic around and everything and be able to get under the back of the car and show you guys how I routed the lines, the fittings and stuff that we used. And then that way you guys can use this as a blueprint. Like I said, you can do some mixing and matching with Alky Digger where you want to mount your pump, if you want to go cable drive or not. Like I said, ultimately I just chose not to go cable drive. I don't believe that I'm going to run into any issues with it. I haven't so far from the street testing and everything that we've done, so I think that we'll be golden. So now I'll go ahead and clip the video and we'll get under the car. So real quick, guys, before we get under the back of the car, I wanted to show you guys the changes that we made to the factory fuel cell in order to make the transition to the mechanical pump and for methanol and everything a lot easier. So we did end up moving the transcooler to up top inside the car. That was to make space for the rear mount radiator, so that'll be in another video, but it fit nice and perfect right there. We did go ahead and get, which if you guys can see, Amazon special gas filler lid. We went ahead and did drilled a hole for a bulkhead fitting right here into the top of the gas tank, so that way this is our return line and it feeds into the top of your fuel cell or your gas tank. One of the things I highly recommend, and really would be, in my opinion, the smartest and best way to do all this, any type of drilling you're going to be doing, and this is kind of obvious and goes without really having to say it, any type of drilling for the holes for the for your new gas cap, your fuel cell lid, drilling for this, drilling for the bulkhead fitting, drilling the underside of the tank, anything you're going to be doing, obviously tank needs to be empty, and the best way to do that really would be to rinse it out thoroughly with water afterwards, and then you can always spray it down with some starting fluid or some brake cleaner or whatever to get any excessive moisture out of the tank once you're done. But to get all the extra shavings and everything out from drilling these holes, cutting the hole for the bulkhead fitting, and then obviously the sump fitting, you do not want any of those shavings inside your fuel cell or gas tank or anything. So thoroughly rinse it out and then clean it with, you can spray it down with brake cleaner or starting fluid. So there is a metal on the OEM tank, there is a metal ring that when you remove the your OEM or your triple pump, even my billet hat that I had for my triple pump setup, there is a metal ring that goes around where I have these drilled. If you space it correctly, and when you want to do something like this and just bolt this into place, when you drill these holes, it will be exactly on the outside of that ring, that metal ring, so you will not have to drill through the metal. You can drill directly through the plastic on the stock tank. On the 98 fuel tank, if you guys even are factory fuel tank, on the 98, I'm unsure. I would assume it'd be the same way. So if you space it correctly, you can drill right past that metal and not have to worry about it. It'll make your life a lot easier. So this is a nice little lid that we got. It just is a little pop open lid here, which you guys can see now into the fuel cell. So that's a nice little lid that we got off of Amazon. Just a little pop top fuel cell cap. Bulk -12 bulkhead fitting, union, and a 90. Everything with the trans lines and everything just comes up through. I made a little grommet and everything comes up through here right in front of your factory fuel tank. Makes it nice and easy. I have a decent amount of lines running back here, but I'm pretty happy with how all this stuff turned out. So lid, bulkhead, 90 fitting, -12 return. Everything on the car is, the feed and return are all PTFE. So PTFE line is the plastic interior. I believe it's called CPE is the rubber inside line. We did PTFE, which is more expensive, but I'm not gonna have to redo this fuel system anytime soon because of that. So the methanol will not break down that plastic the way that it would the rubber, and then you gum up your fuel filters and all that stuff. So buy once, cry once. I wanted to get it done. This will be the third time that I've redone the fuel system on this car, and I'm about all done doing that. So all the lines and everything are Fragola brand from Motion Raceworks. Most of the fittings are AC Performance or Evil Energy Amazon brand. Haven't had any issues with those, either one of those brands. They're a lot cheaper, and they work just as well as any other name brand fittings that I've ever run into. So AC Performance, Evil Energy fittings basically on the entire car. Fragola Motion Raceworks line. Amazon special cap. And now we'll go ahead and climb under the car, and I'll be able to show you the how I routed the lines, bulkhead or sump fitting, the whole nine. So here we go. Nice and clean. So Motion Raceworks, on their website, I believe it's either a 2 7/8 hole saw or a 3-inch hole saw. I believe it's a 3-inch. You get a hole saw, you cut your hole in the bottom of your tank. This goes up the inside. Fitting has a notch cut in it, so you can actually feed it up over the lip and actually fish it in at an angle to get it up inside your fuel tank. It has a notch cut in it to be able to go through the opening that you just cut. Obviously, it's like a 3.5 or 4-inch fitting that goes on the inside, and it has an O-ring in here, a nice O-ring that seals, and it bolts together here. So it goes inside, and it just sandwiches down and seals with an O-ring on this fitting. Very, very nice fitting. It was like $100. Highly recommend it for your mechanical fuel pump setup. If you want to go bigger than dash 12, you can always run a dash 12 ORB to a dash 16 fitting and run dash 16 line. In my opinion, it's overkill. So we went ahead and just did a dash 12 ORB to dash 12 line. So we ran our line out of the bottom of the tank right over here. It runs on the inside of our I guess panhard bar, TRZ setup. This bar, the rear end moves up and down, but this bar does not move. So I put this. We have our coolant line, and we have our fuel line here. So everything above this bar, I don't have to worry about clearance issues. So ran it here, and this is going to be a tight squeeze. Fuel line comes over the rear end here. Fuel line runs down here, goes to another hose clamp with a nutsert behind it, runs here to this is my pre-pump filter. So this is the pump, the fuel filter, and my headlamp just cut off and I'm trying to turn it back on. There we go. This is my filter that I will be removing on the car. This is the pre-pump filter from Fuel Lab. Very nice setup. But like I said, this can a lot of times on a mechanical pump setup act like a restriction. So what we're going to end up doing is I have a section, not sure if I can find it. I have a section of fuel hose right here that is already cut to length that will end up going right there where that fuel filter is to replace that fuel filter. So this will be removed. We're going to install this into place to cut down on any, which you guys can see. Not going to have any flow issues with that. So I have my line going here. Another M6 bolt with a nutsert behind it. I have one here on my overflow line, and this is my 1-inch clamps that I have for, with nut certs and everything behind them, for my fuel line. Runs along here, and I have it, which this is my coolant line that I have not secured yet, but I have my fuel line running here. Right now it is currently just zip tied there, and it's held tightly that it's not going to go anywhere, but I will ultimately end up putting probably a roll cage clamp style fitting there to hold that fuel line. Runs along the side of the K-member, comes up here, and there is my mechanical pump. So it runs into the I guess would be top side. I have the fuel pump flipped around. It feeds in through, the feed is actually through the top of that mechanical fuel pump, and I just have it flipped around, so it is now going in through the bottom essentially. So that is flipped around, and then have the bracket and everything. That is the alternator spacer off of Amazon, and then you guys have already seen the other side, the top side of the mechanical pump setup. So pretty straightforward, guys. And then the return line, how I have the return line routed is, you guys can see that 1-inch hose clamp right there, nut cert behind it with my M6 bolt, feeds up through the opening here with my trans lines, and that return line is routed here, goes up above my subframe connectors here. So up above the subframe connector, there is the perfect amount of space, and you can see that line. That line moves freely. It's not pinched under that subframe connector. There's a perfect amount of space to run your dash 12 line on the inside of that subframe connector. Runs up here. Another one of my nut certs. And up here, and then my regulator is mounted, and I can show you guys that. Regulator is mounted up top. So pretty straightforward, guys. In my opinion, very clean install on this car. I'll show you where my regulator is currently mounted, because I almost forgot about that. So if you get 20 feet of line from Motion Raceworks, which it comes in 10-foot sections, and I think it's 10 foot and 20 feet. So if you get a 20-foot section, I made the run for the feed from the tank, and it would have been one line, but I obviously have my pre-pump filter that I could have removed, and it comes down over here and goes in. That was about almost exactly 10 feet. So the return line, same thing. If you plan on mounting your regulator in the back here on the Fbody car behind, if you have enough space and you can mount it on the center of the firewall, you will have just enough line. Or if you mount it over here, and I have it secured with my hose clamp, my 1-inch hose clamps here, holding each side of the regulator, it was the perfect amount of line. 20 feet did this car perfectly. So I have my my Aeromotive high flow regulator. I have 90-degree fittings here and the one here, and they just loop over and go into each one of my fuel rails. These are dash 10, so the feed is dash 12 all the way to the pump. It is dash 12 fuel filter, high flow fuel, 10 gallon per minute fuel filter, and then it goes to a 12 to 10 feed for each rail, and then it goes from the rails to dash 10 here, and then out of the bottom of the regulator is a dash 12. So you will have just enough line. If you get 20 feet, you can mount your regulator here or mount your regulator here, and if you run the right 90s or 45 fittings, 20 feet will be exactly what you need for these Fbody cars to actually make it work, depending on where you want to mount your regulator. So that's it for this video, guys. Like I said, I believe this is a pretty nice, clean install for this car. I like the way that it turned out. Small changes we're going to make, but stay tuned for the next video. It will be the rear mount radiator setup, and then we'll go about how we're changing the intake, bigger turbo, all that fun stuff. So see us on the next one, guys. Like and subscribe. Thank you.